Welcome to Action Hour. Guess what? Hollywood royalty compound has been transformed into a freedom farm. Let's watch this. Welcome to the show, Marilyn, and thanks for being here. Tell us, what is the main message you want to get out today to us, this amazing sanctuary that you started?
The main message is that animal rights, the movement, needs to become trauma-informed. And I'm planning that this sanctuary at in Creston, California, 44 acres, is going to be a trauma-informed sanctuary. And so it's going to be a place of peace, harmony, and joy. It doesn't mean that we're going to ignore the traumas that exist in the agricultural industry or within our own lives. It's just that we are open to looking at it.
Well, that's amazing. I want to hear a lot more about that, but can you take us back a little bit about how this is also going to be the new headquarters for IDA. And can you just tell us a little bit about how this all came about? I understand that you have a relationship with Todd Fischer, Debbie Reynolds' son. And can you talk a little bit? I'm sure people are very curious about that.
Well, it starts with somebody knocked on our door. We had 2 commercial buildings and they wanted to buy them. And I wasn't thinking of selling. You know, they were occupied, and I said, why not? So I negotiated the contract, the sale, and I did a pretty good job of negotiating it, I must say. And we had to, 45 days to identify 3 properties. And it was probably the last day of the 45 days. And I was scouring the internet and I said a little prayer. Oh, please help me with this trial and tribulations. I haven't found the property yet. I want to find the property. Show me the property. And the next thing I did was I clicked on this Debbie Reynolds compound property. And I go, oh my goodness. I said, well, it's probably taken. So I called up and I got one of the brokers in. I was very persistent. It was almost like I was driven to actually see it through. And she said, well, you could come tomorrow. And it's 3 hours away from where I live in Malibu Canyon, because Todd is going to be here, Todd Fischer. And he's really the only one that can explain this property to you because it's his. I mean, he built it. He's lived here for 30 years. And I jumped at the chance. And when we arrived, he's a wonderful, incredible, laid back person when he's laid back. He was very sweet and very, very comforting. And, we just couldn't stop talking. And we ended up, I was with my boyfriend, we stayed the whole day there. And we went out to dinner. We had some wine after a while. And I saw a vision at that point, because I knew that Debbie Reynolds was very much into mental health issues. She was the president of Thalians for many, many years. And which was,
Right.
yeah. So, and I knew that.
No, I just got touched a note because I actually was a member of Thalians. I thought it was big. Yeah. And I remember I was a lot younger, but Debbie was a big part of that. Her and Shirley MacLaine. You just reminded me, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And Carrie Fischer, her daughter, that's the sister of Todd Fischer, had a problem with addiction, and had been in and out of different facilities. And I'm a psychiatrist. So it seemed like an interesting match, that, I loved the way they had the pictures.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, well, would you mind if I just kept the place the way it is and not change it?
So will that be offices, that areas, or can you?
Well, their offices, we have more buildings than that one. That's almost 8,000 square foot main house, but then there's a 10,000 square foot production facilities there, studio and stuff, another 6,000. So there's a number of buildings on the property.
Wow.
And, the actual office, it probably is going to be in one of those other buildings. Yeah.
Should I play the second clip, which shows really the interior?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. I hope this works here. My little pointer is giving me a problem, but here we go. Yeah, this. Oh, wow. Was that an Indian teepee there, the frame of it in that one shot?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute. That would be for kids or something? Or
I don't know. I feel like I'll use it.
you'd use it? I would too.
Yeah, I just have to get the canvas for it.
So now people kind of have an idea of what it looks like. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about, and I just had to remind myself to look in the camera. So we both are looking at each other a little bit because it's the way we do, but let's look in the camera. So tell us a little bit of how this will be used. Will you be using that as like tours or something? Like, can you tell us a little bit about your plans for the?
Yes. Well, I plan to, I've always dreamt of having a vegan center, actually. And that would have serve a lot of different purposes.
Yes.
There would be sort of cooking classes, nutritional classes there, different kinds of talks on animals and animal agriculture. So it would be educational as well as meditative, to bring peace and to teach people self-care.
Love that.
Yeah, and it would be open to just anybody who's willing to be open, essentially.
So, open to anyone who's willing to be open. And how would people, would they volunteer, or would they take classes, or would there be, a membership fee, or yeah.
Well, they probably would take workshops, classes.
Okay.
They're volunteers. That there are people working on the property right now. They're not volunteers, and they're taking care of the animals and the house. But I see it as kind of like maybe one place where you can have everything vegan.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the animals. I'm sure, because we got the animal lover channel, just what we are. So I'm having some trouble with my mouse here, but I wanted to show some of the pictures of maybe a little bit. Can you talk about the type of animals that are there and how many, et cetera?
Well, it came with about 18 or so cows, most of them bulls, actually. And there I am with one. And, I told Todd that I wouldn't buy the property unless the cows came with the property.
Oh, I love that.
I didn't realize until the winter time how expensive it was to keep.
Yeah.
Oh, they're big eaters. And they're very, very, they've never had any shots, vaccines, or antibiotics. Everything. The place was organic for many, many years, certified. There's been no pesticides on the property.
That's wonderful.
It's been kept pretty pure. And Todd said, "Okay, I'll donate the cows to you." And that's how I got the cows. So there's all those cows. And then there's a horse that was a race horse who had to undergo surgery. They saved his life. And he's best friends. His name is Odie, and he's best friends with Eeyore, the donkey.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The donkey and him are usually always together.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, they're very sweet. Then there's a lot of peacocks all around. The male peacocks with all the fantastic feathers, and then the females that are a little more drabby. They're drab, actually. But the men are sort of they're like looking at themselves in the windows and
seeing. Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They look at themselves, huh?
Oh, they do. They're just like females.
Wow.
In that way.
There you go.
But they're trying to attract a mate. And I just love them. And they have this wonderful screech, but I love hearing it now that I know what it is, and they're just great. That's Eeyore. Now I had to change Eeyore's name to Eeyora because we found out she was a girl.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. And then we have like ducks.
We saw the pond, yeah.
And when I first arrived there were 3 ducks, and I used to call them the duck committee because they were always chatting with each other, 3 of them. And they just sort of ignored me, and just continued their conversations and their meeting. And then there's some geese, Canadian geese, that sometimes fly in. And then there's, so we haven't opened up the sanctuary quite yet to be a sanctuary. I'm taking a course right now on how to run a sanctuary as friends. It's a long course, and I'm going there in 2 weeks to Kanab, Utah, to spend a week.
Did you want to mention where that was, or the
sanctuary? That's near Zion National Park. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's gorgeous. Okay. It's with red rocks, and it's fantastically beautiful. I've been there before, and I really love what they've done, with their property. They have a great property, and with all kinds of, mostly dogs and cats, actually.
Oh, okay.
Mostly dogs and cats, but they have also birds, and they have pigs. And but they specialize mostly in dogs and cats, and so I'm enjoying the course.
That's awesome, Marilyn. I want to let people know, because we're actually more than halfway through our time, a little bit about your background, and then a little bit about what you wanted to share on your website. So let's go ahead and talk about your background and all your accomplishments that you've done in animal rights. I don't want to embarrass you, but I know that you've been such an amazing activist, and IDA has such an amazing track record. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I was originally just a person, not a psychiatrist and not an animal rights activist, and I was. And I did a lot of traveling when I was in my 20s, all over Africa, the Middle East, India. And I saw a lot there because I was by myself. I traveled by myself. And I went to very remote areas. I stayed with some tribes there. And then I decided that I wanted to become a doctor. I was a photographer. I was an award-winning photographer before. I had a grant endowment for the arts, and I worked for the Village Voice. And I just had one of my photographs was purchased by Tupac Shakur's family.
Oh, wow.
Because they just did
I wish we had a picture of that. That would be great to show our audience.
Well, I don't have a picture of Tupac because Marilyn Shakur, his mother.
No, you're painting. No, your photography. Sorry, your
photography. Oh, I have it, but yes, I'd have to do something with this computer. I might lose.
Well, you can give it to me for the edit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But they loved it, and it's her at a Black Panther meeting, and I was working for a radical newspaper at that time. I was a photographer. It was an underground newspaper called Rat. Rat something, but the name was Rat, and Sub-Saharan. That's right, Sub-Saharan, Rat Sub-Saharan. And I took a picture of Marilyn Shakur, and it's the only one that really is a good picture of her talking to a group of Black Panthers and other people listening to her at a Black Panther rally in New York. And they were it's funny, my photography career, I haven't really paid attention to it, but I did, record albums, and I did lots of different things, architectural work. And you can Google it, and you can find it if you're persistent enough, because that was my very early stage.
What would they Google, Marilyn?
Oh,
your name?
Yeah.
And art, or your photography?
I did record albums for the Rascals, and just books that has my photography in it. And but I decided that I wanted to become a medical doctor. I wanted to
switch careers.
it wasn't so much a career. I felt it was sort of like a calling at that point. And it was a path to really educate myself on a very long and difficult path.
Yeah.
And I felt that's what I needed at the time. And I wanted to challenge myself that way. I was much in the arts, and I felt like I need to get into science. And my artwork was becoming science. And then I've traveled. I did a trip to Africa for 2 years. And then I did a trip to Southeast Asia for 6 months after I was a doctor. And I worked in refugee camps in Pakistan, on the border of Burma. Oh, no, Thailand, excuse me. There are several trips here. I was in Pakistan during the war with the Russians. And then I went to Thailand, and I worked there in refugee camps that was right near Burma. And I worked with in a town that was owned by Hunza, who was the opium warlord. And there was a lot of wars going on there. It was really scary. And, there was a lot of falciparum malaria too, so you couldn't stay out too late, because they could bite you and get you.
Right.
There was no access to any health care, really. I worked in a clinic, but everybody was afraid to transport patients, based on folklore. And then I practiced psychiatry for a long time and had private practice in Malibu. And I was asked to go on the board of IDA. Meanwhile, I had bought an animal in a pet store, and I knew it wasn't the right thing to do, but I just felt I don't have much time. I'm always working. Let me just get, I fell in love. I fell in love in a pet store, and it was a little Yorkie. And the next day, he's dying on me. He's literally dying. And I call up the.
Why was that?
Well, he was having seizures. He was very tiny. He had a kennel cough, and he looked like, the vet told me he was an hour within death, and I was so determined. And when I called up the owner, he said, you did something wrong. So then I realized, wow, I should have really read about this before I went and impulsively bought them. And then my whole life changed from that moment on. I just became looking into everything about puppy mills, puppy brokers, and Dr. Katz was very enthusiastic about my project, and he subsidized.
And of course, Dr. Katz was the founder of IDA.
Yes, he's a founder. He was a veterinarian. He was a veterinarian. He passed away 2 years ago, actually.
Yes.
And so then I ended up going on the board, and after a while, I was the only person on the board, and that's a long story. I won't go into it this time. And I had to pick my own board, and then I really didn't want to be president. I was like, oh my God, it looks like a lot of work.
Responsibility,
a lot of responsibility. And I didn't have a real strong background in animal rights, but what I did have was a very strong background in people and trauma and abuse. And I was very good because unlike a lot of animal rights people, I wanted to study people, not just animals. I wanted to study people to try to see what made them tick. Why were they
abusive
the way they were?
Yeah. Why would they abuse animals? Why would they would do it to people as well if they're.
Well, yeah. And then I totally got into, and I realized that they had been traumatized in their childhood, most of them. And they just did not want to deal with their issues. And so they got very familiar with animals. They became activists and everything, but they rather ignore people. And not every activist is like that. A high percentage, And so they needed somebody with my skill set, actually.
Well, it
Um,
is traumatic to be in animal rights and to go through and,
yes,
just watching the footage that we have to, all the things, and to not understand when you have that sensitivity and understanding to animals, to not see that in others, it does make one very cynical. It can, cause a lot of trauma in itself.
but the trauma keeps repeating itself inside that person. They reenact it. And
Mhm.
sometimes it can be anger, expressed as anger or violence, or just you may be an angry demonstrate,
Yeah.
maybe a less effective way of advocating for animals. And so I became very interested in, helping activists to find a more effective way of
Mhm.
advocating for and working with people who were maybe not fully vegan at that point.
So is
And
a lot of the training and programs you're doing going to involve teaching people about eating more healthfully with a vegan diet, et cetera?
well, the funny thing was, I wasn't a vegan when I started this, and so
Mhm.
I went. Matter of fact, I went to our first board meeting and I asked for a turkey sandwich, and everyone looked at me like they almost dropped dead. They almost like I said, "Oh no, I'll have a vegetarian burrito." Okay, but I was very reluctant to become a vegan because I had a lot of trouble with food issues.
Mhm.
And I didn't think that I could become a vegan and stay and not become obese
Mm. Which
because
of course is not true.
I love cashews. Well, no, it's not true at all. Matter of
Not
fact,
true
that's
at
how
all.
I maintain my weight so much better
I
being a
have to tell
vegan.
you that since I became vegan, I have went back to the weight I was in high school. So I think that's a
Exactly.
big fallacy. If you eat all the, fake meats and all the pre-packaged and pre-prepared products that they have out there, which are great in
Or
between,
Doritos are vegan too. You can be a
yeah,
junk
you can
food
make your
vegan.
own.
Yeah. So, but I learned how I did it was I
Yeah.
didn't know how to cook. I was like you. I didn't know how before. I didn't know how to cook. And I said, I have to learn how to cook. That's why I've never been able to really accomplish this goal. And so I said, what? I have to get motivation. What motivates me? And it wasn't at that point my job, the animals, my health. It was vegan cheesecake.
Oh my goodness.
And all of a sudden, I remembered the deliciousness of vegan cheesecake that I had at a party. And I said, "Oh, if I could just have a piece of that right now, I would learn how to cook. I would cook it." And so I said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And I went out and I got the ingredients. I made the vegan cheesecake. It was absolutely fabulous. But then I said, "You can't worry about weight, and you can't worry about being addicted to this. You can eat as much as you want for as long as you want." And I don't require anything else. I just want you to stay vegan. It worked.
And you said that to yourself and it
Yeah,
worked.
and for 3 months, I ate vegan cheesecake, all different varieties, and made them. Became an
Yeah.
expert in vegan cheesecake, baking it and not baking it, and then I said, "Uh oh, it's wearing thin. I'm building a tolerance to vegan cheesecake. Maybe what I need to do. What else do I like to do? I like to travel." So I said, "Let's make some Ethiopian food, Marilyn. Let's go to Ethiopia tonight." And that's how I creatively opened
Mhm.
my heart to cooking and veganism, and I just love it because
I
it's
had the same experience. I had the exact same experience. I was not a cook, not a chef. And now, since I became vegan, I love cooking, discovering different types of foods.
oh
And
yeah,
I cook sometimes I'll cook 3 times a week and then eat the leftovers because I'm just busy. But I
yeah,
actually enjoy it's not a chore. In
yeah.
fact, right after this, I'm going on TikTok to cook some vegan food on TikTok for people to get them to go vegan. But anyway, back to IDA. I do want
Okay.
to talk
So
a little bit about.
So
I want,
that's before I was vegan, and then I'm present. I've been present for about 12 years,
yeah,
and
President.
the first thing I saw was that there was a lot of there was a lot of violence in the movement.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
The violence in the movement was mostly how they treated other people and each other. And we don't, it was maybe being sarcastic, talking behind someone's back, feeling very angry that somebody's not advanced enough in veganism. And so I understood that was a trauma, they were expressing trauma, some trauma. And so I worked with that understanding. I was able to really change the culture at IDA and make it into a trauma-informed culture. I didn't really come on very strong initially because I was just a new person, and but I knew better that I shouldn't bring violence into the organization. That I knew, and I needed to solve some of it. I needed to be a role model.
So by that you mean your approach was not to go in there with gangbusters and say this is the changes we're going to make, etc.
No.
You went in through very slowly, through ways of showing through love and example.
You're reading my mind, I think.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That's exactly what happened. I mean, I saw the good in everybody until but I had some limits. And once they went past those limits, then I was very clear I could not continue working with that person in the organization because it would become toxic to the whole culture. And gradually, some people changed, they adapted to these values that I had. And one of the values was safety. I wanted a safe environment where people could admit mistakes. They could take criticism, and safety was very important, psychological safety, but also physical safety and verbal safety. And if you don't have you can't develop safety, you can't develop trust between people. And you're not really developing great activists that way.
Right.
Because they're always kind of trying to beat each other out and compete.
Yeah, competition as opposed to cooperation, which is what we all need which we need in this world in order to solve our problems. I'm right on. I agree with everything. So you're basically working from inside out, inside of your organization, out to the world.
Out to the world, because it first started in me, in my heart. I was, I had some abuse issues in my life. And so I've been working on that for a very long time. And I might add, not very well. And when I was younger, I made all the mistakes. But as I got older, I really became more aware. Then I became a psychiatrist. But I just did a lot of inner work.
Yeah.
And so then I was kind of experienced in dealing with people that are angry. And I became less angry, and I became more productive, and I became less blameful. If you're angry, you blame other people for your shortcomings. And so I became more confident. I realized that I had to make my own life. I wouldn't wait for my parents to understand me.
Right.
But see, I think a lot of people haven't processed their trauma in animal rights. Right. And so they just ignore any skill set that you need to get along in to mediate conflict. And then they just avoidance is a thing too, and the denial that they don't have a problem. Right. We all have problems. We've all been traumatized.
That's for sure.
Life is a trauma. If you haven't,
especially now, it's even getting worse. And for me, I feel a lot of times I'll say, as I see things getting worse and worse, like they're saying they're going to run out of money for FEMA. And I'm like, what's going to happen to these animals if, our government isn't willing even to take care of the people? Like, I
Well,
mean, not just the government, but the whole systematic structure of capitalism that has brought us to this point.
I would
But,
like to
it
see some
makes me
conscious
worry.
capitalism, conscious capitalism.
Conscious, I do too. I believe in capitalism. Don't get me wrong, anyone out there. But conscious capitalism, exactly, Marilyn. You will get what you want, but only when others get more than they asked for back. And that's Wallace D. Wattles. He just, some of his uh, quotes about success, how to be successful. And I
Mhm.
love that one because it's about giving. It's about an attitude of not entitlement, but of giving, not with the idea of getting back, but you get back, regardless
Right.
of whether you think about getting it
It's
back.
about thinking of other people other than yourself,
Right.
and and just and having that empathy that we are all interconnected.
Yeah.
Truly, we are, and if we don't realize that interconnection, we'll just have more guns, we'll have more prisons, we'll have more prisoners, and we'll have more hate in the world.
And
Uh,
ultimately destroy ourselves and the
yes,
planet.
and the planet, because and our bodies. So everything sort of fit into animal rights. That
Mhm.
just helped me to grow and to understand how I was hurting myself with processed foods, and you know and also and that was a big thing because I always had cravings before for food, and I had no cravings once I became vegan. Hardly.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same for me. I don't get cravings because the foods are so nutrient dense.
Satisfying. They're very
Yes, they're
satisfying.
nutrient dense in me. Like even when you add seeds and nuts in replacement for dairy to make
Yeah,
some dairy, you're actually giving it's a lot more satisfying to you than eating the dairy, which after you're done, you just want more. With this, oh, that was amazing. And I feel great. I don't need more.
right. So I always thought, gee, I can never really enjoy food because if I enjoy food, I'm going to get fat. If I don't, I was never really fat, but for me, it seemed fat.
Yeah.
And if I enjoyed the food, I would get fat, and otherwise I had to really be very careful about what I ate. But when I'm a vegan, anything is possible. I mean, I really feel like it's given me freedom.
It has, absolutely. And people think I was in the dentist the other day, and this woman goes, "Oh, how did you do that?" It was so easy. I referred her to, by the way, I want to say to everyone, if you want some great recipes, be sure and check out Unchained TV. I'm looking for the banner right here. I wanted to show you guys, but definitely check out our streaming platform, Unchained TV. It's go to watch.unchained TV. We have amazing cooking shows and all sorts of content, entertaining content, documentaries, series, feature films, and it's all free. So we want people to get out. We want to get the message out to people.
Yes. So I think it's all interrelated. It makes total sense to me. It actually has become the purpose for my life.
Yeah.
I really, everything that I've done up until this point has brought me to this point.
So you are here with a purpose.
Oh, yeah,
Let's
I realize my purpose now.
You realized your purpose.
Hmm.
Let's show, let me see if I can bring up there we go. There's your website. And I wanted to, we talked about going to this page or whatever page you'd like me to share. Let me see, why is that doing? This is about the farm. I believe this is about the barn
That's
or
freedom. Oh, the barn. Yeah. The thing about the cows, we have a barn there, but it was used as a movie set. And they built it to be a barn, but it was incomplete. And so we need to build another barn, and that's what I really want to do for, the animals there.
right.
On.
So how can
study the animals?
Yeah, I wanted to just show this one page too with all the campaigns that have been run through IDA
Yeah.
really quickly because we're almost out of time, believe it or not.
Carnivores Anonymous. Jane used to go to that one a lot and film it.
Oh my goodness. So tell us a little quick story about that, if you can.
That's a 12-step program for recovering carnivores.
I love it. I love it.
And it's based on 12-step principles. And we would have a speaker, and I did it for 2 years, and then I want to continue it on some level. I don't know, it might morph into something else, but.
Are there any campaigns that you'd like to just quickly mention to us that you're currently working on, or IDA is working on?
Yeah. Well, the Thule Elk is a very important campaign, where what you realize as this world opens up to you, you realize all the atrocities that are going on in the world. And you also realize how corrupt a lot of these agencies are. And they're not protecting us, and they're certainly not protecting the animals. They see the animals as machines, commodities to be used and abused. And the funny thing is that it's not funny. We're way smarter than that, but the average person cannot face the pain that they were part of that awful cycle of abuse.
Do you believe that's why people are in denial about animals? They continue to eat meat and pay others to kill and torture animals?
Well, I think that they are in denial because they were brought up. It was conditioning. Your mother, your father, they taught you to have meat, steak, There's that. And also, it was probably traumatic. There's a lot of trauma, and there's the ability to dissociate, to actually just kind of block it out. And I think that becomes a protective defense for people when they're exposed to trauma. And so I believe that the trauma that we do every day by eating meat, it perpetuates the violence.
And I've noticed that also another side benefit of becoming vegan: less rage, less feelings. I could step back from my anger. I think there's actually chemicals that, it makes sense when the animals die. Do you know anything about that? Could you weigh in on that?
Actually, meat is addicting, believe it or not. It has certain chemicals in it that are actually, they sort of trigger the reward system of the brain, the nucleus accumbens. And so, we crave it if you're used to it. And so when you're trying not to eat it, let's say, you develop cravings because your mind is still going, and it's sending you signals that it's so delicious, or the taste and everything like that.
That's the people that love meat, because there are some people like myself that never liked it. I didn't like it.
Well, I'm not talking only about meat, but fish also. I mean, fish.
But the whole thing, even fish.
But with meat, there are specific compounds in there, chemicals in there that have been identified as addictive. Sure. I think it's just there's a big cultural overlay too, and it has to do with some of the gender issues. I think that meat is masculine, and if you want to be a man, you have to eat meat.
Men eat meat,
and if you want to be a woman, you have to make meat for your man.
Oh God!
Something that I was never good at. Never.
Right. I've never been the little woman.
I never would do that.
And Tom Vincel he said, please bring her back. And he's saying no animal wants to die. Look at the adrenaline people have ingested, and that's
that's another thing. You don't know when you're eating meat what chemicals
what's in there,
just from the terror of the slaughter. Of the animal being slaughtered. There's so much adrenaline and norepinephrine, and they're just cortisol.
Yeah, but not to even mention all the things they're finding in meat.
Well, antibiotics.
Something came out recently.
Antibiotics. There's carcinogenic. My mother died of colon cancer, actually, and that was another precipitating event that brought me to this place, because then I started reading about meat and how it is implicated in cancer.
Yes, absolutely. I can believe in that. Well, I think it's the toxins that build up in our bodies. And I just had some dental work, and right after I did a heavy metal cleanse, or not a heavy metal, but a metal cleanse. Heavy metal. But yeah, and you know,
heavy metals. You did a cleanse.
But seriously, I do believe, because last night I did a belly button mugwort wrap, and I was having gland swelling, and this is not, you know, medical advice, but it completely went away after the third day of it. Was pretty persistent. So I believe in
so
plant.
many illnesses go away once you switch to plant-based, and you know, so then that being a medical doctor also, it intrigues me. You know, you mean you could just through diet alone eliminate type 2 diabetes. It's amazing. And my medical labs improved so much once I became vegan.
Same.
Yeah.
We will
So
be forever young, Marilyn.
I'm on a campaign to help people that don't know about this, or they feel guilty. And I mean, they don't even realize they feel guilty, but they just reject veganism, or they don't know how to do it. There's so many factors involved. It's very complex.
It is very complex, because just in my own home, my husband's an animal lover. We have 5 rescue animals, cats and dogs, but he's a speciesist in that he doesn't make the connection to pigs and cows, you know, and it's.
Yes. And that's another thing that I love at the farm, and I want other people to enjoy this too. It's being in nature and being with creatures that you never saw them whole. Maybe you saw them great or some, you never saw them whole. And I was watching the cows one day, and, you know, they were mooing and mooing and mooing. And they thought that I was in that, you know, that cart. What do they call it? Anyway, I was in this motorized cart, and usually we give hay. We put the hay in the cart and then we feed them. So they were thinking we had hay, and then they were mooing and mooing. And then all of a sudden, they stopped. Like 20 cows stopped and just stood silent all at the same time and looked at me.
Oh,
and it was almost amazing. Like a meditation. They somehow got the understanding that it was a waste of energy to moo, and they just needed to be quiet within. They were going to get their food, you know, in another hour.
Yeah.
But something that I would never realize before, that, you know,
they're so
cows are they're almost meditative on some level, you know, and very sweet with long eyelashes, and, you know, you get up close to them and you see all sorts of things. And
the gentleness.
Yeah. And so, you know, I grew up in Long Island, East Coast, and we never had any animals. I had a turtle and a goldfish. And I always longed for something else, but, you know, dogs weren't very popular back east, not really. And so when I came out to California, I got parrots, I got dog, you know, and now I've got, you know, now with IDA, I'm have children that are cows and peacocks and donkeys, and and there'll be more animals, many more. Yeah.
So, Marilyn, we are just about out of time, but is there anything you want our audience to know before we have to go?
Don't be afraid to open up to your own trauma issues. It's not going to be comfortable at first, but eventually it will open worlds for you, and you can get out of this triangle, this stuck place where you're not going forward in your life, perhaps. And that's one of the ways that I notice if somebody is stuck, or the organization is stuck. The organization is a living organism. And just like we're living organisms and the animals are living organisms. And if being stuck or not avoiding something is actually a way of not dealing with it, or you could say it's a way of dealing with it, but not effectively. And it shortens your experience and quality of life. And it certainly shortens the quality of life of the animals. What? I can't hear you.
What advice would you give to people who just saw this, they're brand new on their journey? Where will they begin to get their education? Where should they go? Should they go to the website and contact IDA and get involved?
Yeah, you can do that. You can contact me on Facebook.
We can put your Facebook up, but here's IDA as well.
And IDA has a Facebook page. Most of my Facebook page is IDA. You know, I just made that decision, so I have a lot of IDA stuff on there. And you can write and you know, look for updates, because we're going to do some amazing things there. I think, you know, because I think there's a lot of ways of approaching these problems, and you sometimes need multiple kinds of techniques to do it. And
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm an artist as well, so you know,
yeah.
I combine the art and the science, and with compassion and empathy.
So we could look for some great changes coming forward in new approaches to animal rights and activism with your guidance. And
well, it's been happening already. It's been happening for since I started, but it's going to happen faster now, because I have the infrastructure. I have a great team. I have people that they understand me and what I'm trying to do, and they support it.
That's great. Well, we're so happy to have you today.
Oh, I know. There's one other thing. We have a gala coming up.
You have what?
A gala.
Yes.
In Malibu. So in Malibu, and it's going to be September 14th at 6 o'clock in Malibu. So if you're interested, Facebook me, and I'll send you, I'll send you an invitation.
Absolutely. I will put your Facebook at the top of this post.
Moby's going to be there. Red Food's going to be there.
Wow, it sounds phenomenal.
We're going to have some interesting people.
And I think we'll be there too.
Oh, yes, I hope so.
Yeah. So we will see you next time, folks. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Marilyn, for coming and giving us your insights in a different kind of approach to what we usually talk about. But I love it. I'd love you to come back again in the future. So thanks for being on. Stay on a moment while we close off here with the audience, if you would.